there's various pretexts that the Israeli government is using, such as that these are archaeological sites, and that the homeowners have built illegally, in other words, built without permits on their own land, land that they own.
Well, I have a house and I want to build a room. I need a permit. Why don't these people get permits?
Well, yeah, I mean, you have a house and you're being taxed as as a building, as a homeowner, and this is a building lot, so you should be able to get a permit to build. There, it's routinely denied to Palestinians, and yet they pay the highest taxes. They pay for their property. They pay taxes as building lots, and they're not permitted to build. We were with a man whose name is Abu Dian Fakri. For generations, his family has lived in that neighborhood, on land in that neighborhood of Silwan. In the early 60s, Fakri applied for permission to build, and for 15 or 20 years he kept applying and kept being denied.
15 or 20 years?
Yeah. It was finally, I believe it was in the early 70s that he decided, his family was growing, and he couldn't buy more land, so he began building additions on his house, and today his house is under order of demolition because they say he built illegally on it. This is a reality, a daily reality for the Palestinian folks in that neighborhood and elsewhere in the West Bank. It's disgraceful.
Any other things about the West Bank we didn't get into? And before we have a few more minutes left, we'll talk about Israel. Anything else on the West Bank?
Well, we spent a lot of time walking the neighborhoods, seeing the wall and seeing the separation that the wall. I mean, the Bethlehem, for instance, is almost completely walled off, and the daily reality for Palestinians is that going to work, for instance, which should be maybe a 5 or 10 minute walk, is now an ordeal that takes hours, because there are certain streets they can't walk on. There are checkpoints, some cases 4 or 5 checkpoints they have to go through just to get from their home to their place of work. There are places that used to be thriving markets, open-air markets, that are now just rows and rows of shuttered businesses. The Palestinians have been tremendously oppressed, and they've lost their land, and they're being thrown off. And that was basically the experience that we were getting for the time we were there.
Now, I understand you spent a little time in Israel itself, in Sderot. This is the town that was being attacked from time to time by Palestinian missiles from the Gaza Strip, and was supposedly the reason that the Israelis launched that brutal attack on Gaza in December and January. So describe what you did there.
Well, we met with a family whose house had been hit in February of '08 by a rocket from Gaza, and he showed us where the house was damaged, and began to explain a bit about Sderot and living living with the daily reality of these rockets. Since I believe since 2001, there have been 2 people killed and maybe a dozen or so injured from these attacks. And we're not obviously our intention on our trip was to be with all the different sides in this in the war, and to really to talk to the victims. And it was interesting how the people of Sderot, the ones we talked to anyway, were somewhat angry with the Israeli government because, as they put it, the Israeli policy has been to provoke violence on the part of the other side. And
with a woman who wrote a letter that caused a big controversy, a woman from that town?
Yes, her name is Namika Zion, and it was during the 22-day assault of the Israeli army on Gaza that she became incredibly frustrated, and one night she, as she told us, she stayed up all night and just wrote this scathing editorial to try to express her grief and her pain as a resident of Sderot, and her longing for peace. She talked about, and her anger at the Israeli government for the incessant provocations, particularly in Gaza. She kind of gained some international acclaim for this letter because it went out on the internet, and she was roundly condemned by many in Israel for having said that, what she said.
Well, we're really out of time here. I want to thank you very much for this interview. I'm sure we could have gotten into a whole bunch of other aspects, and I appreciate it.
Well, thanks, and I would finally just like to encourage other folks to go to that area, and particularly today we're still trying to get that border to Gaza open, and all the advocacy that folks can do here is very important to change the policy of our government in that area is very important. So, thank you.
That's our show for today. See you next week at this time. I'm Stanley Heller, and this is The Struggle.
We've got a situation and it calls for a solution that upholds our domination of the planet. We're gonna make our case and we're gonna make it well. And if you don't like our logic, you can it. We'll use impeccable intelligence from any country in the world, as long as we all see eye to eye. And if we don't find quite what we need, we know what to do. Just look into the camera.